Why did World War I happen? Well, there were a lot of big words floating around Europe at the time, things like nationalism and imperialism and militarism. But to really understand what caused this war, let's start with the big question. Why? Why did these European powers keep getting into shouting matches over who had the best culture, the biggest empire, or the strongest military? Well, as with most things in life, the answer is a bit of all of the above. At the beginning of the 20th century, Europe was a powder keg just waiting to blow. There were two main alliances, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The Triple Entente was an alliance between France, Russia, and Britain. And the Triple Alliance was an alliance between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Now, despite the name, Italy would switch sides a few times, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, these alliances were made up of a bunch of countries who had been eyeing each other's stuff for a long time. Germany and Britain were locked in a fierce economic rivalry. Both countries had become huge industrial powers and were fighting for control of the seas and access to raw materials. Meanwhile, France and Germany had a long-standing grudge match going on. Ever since the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, when Germany had invaded and defeated France, the French had been looking for a chance to get their revenge. Then there was Russia, who had a bit of a complex relationship with both Germany and Austria-Hungary. On the one hand, they were all Slavic countries and culturally pretty close. On the other hand, they were all vying for power in the Balkans, an area that would become known as the powder keg of Europe. Finally, we have the Ottomans, who weren't really a major player in the war, but they did control access to the Suez Canal, so Britain was pretty keen to keep them on side. So there you have it, a bunch of countries with a bunch of grudges just waiting for a fight. All it took was a single spark. And that came in June 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo by a Serbian nationalist. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and within a month, the whole alliance system had collapsed. The French and the British had obligations to defend Belgium, not to mention being tied to the Antwerp Cordial. So they went to war, as did the Germans, who had obligations to defend Belgium, not to mention being tied to the Antwerp Cordial. Soon, the whole of Europe was at war. For the next 4 years, soldiers would fight across the continent in one of the deadliest conflicts in history. Eventually, the fighting ended and the treaties were signed. But that doesn't mean peace had broken out. In fact, the seeds of the next World War were already being planted. To learn more about how World War I ended and what happened next, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.